Good morning, David. Nice to have you here.
Hey Liv, good morning. How are you?
Good. So we will get started with our humble and hungry combo. So I am Olivia Gardner, the program associate on the network team here at Camelback. And here with us today, we have David Lopez with Gritly. And I will have him introduce himself in a little bit. He is from the Camelback Fellow class of 2022. Um, but I want to start off with your why. So, in a few words or sentences, how has being an entrepreneur changed your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something I think a lot about. Ultimately the work, here today I can tell you, the easy answer is that everything that we're doing is much bigger than ourselves, right? It's much bigger than our team. And, really we're trying to tackle a massive problem that, I do feel well equipped to solve. But to get into like my day one why really comes down into that, I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see in the world. I was fortunate to have broken down a lot of barriers. And rather than me going off and, creating my own path, I wanted to turn back around and break down the barriers that my community were facing when it came into getting access to economic mobility. And so, really for me is that, understanding of it's bigger than us, but also, leaning into that, we can create the change that we want to see in the world, no matter how tough the problem is.
I love that. I think that's super important. Okay, so I introduced you briefly, but can you share a little bit more about yourself and your venture and why you chose to pursue being your own boss?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm based here in Denver, Colorado. I'm born and raised here. I myself I come from a low income single parent household where I was fortunate to be the almost like a unicorn to go off to a big 4 year school for college, in which the only reason I was able to get there in the first place was because I was able to get a full ride scholarship. And so if I didn't get that scholarship, I would have been just like all of my other friends, family, and colleagues, where it was kind of like, all right, like what's next? Where education wasn't necessarily always thrown in front of us. It was just one of the ways out. And so when I got to college, though, I quickly realized three things. One, there wasn't a lot of people who looked like me. Two, those who did were oftentimes going into debt to pursue these degrees. And three, at the end of the day, college and university isn't for everybody, and that's okay. I specifically looked back to my community where being raised by a single mom, she was really great at keeping me focused on what was happening inside the classroom versus what was happening outside our front door and within our community. And so, early on, I was able to, really lean into not necessarily hustling drugs, which is something that was happening in my community, but more so hustling school. And so, with that, like I said, I was fortunate, was able to go off to college, but then I really started to think back, well, why can't my community get access to this if, college isn't that option? And so, I actually went to the employers that were hiring a lot of my colleagues in undergrad and really asked them, like, what is the number one thing you need to see from somebody if you're going to hire them and they don't have access? Oh, am I still good? Okay. All right, cool. No, sorry, I saw myself disappear. But I went to these employers and asked them, like, what's the number one thing you need to see from someone if you're going to hire them and they don't have a college degree? And time again, the most common response was grit. So they wanted somebody that can overcome that adversity. And so for me, that was easy because we're talking about my community back home where this isn't a community that's thriving. This is a community that's built on survival, right? We're tapping into that adversity on overcoming adversity on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And so for me, it was like, all right, if you want grit, I can get you grit, but we also know that you need a little bit more than that just to to be able to hire somebody. And so ultimately what we ended up doing, we partnered with a number of these companies and went and built what would become a tech sales boot camp, a tech sales curriculum where we were doing everything from exposure, right? So these individuals, they have a ton of transferable skills that they don't even realize, but they're jumping into an entirely new industry, right? And so oftentimes we are helping, our core focus was women, minorities, veterans, and justice involved individuals where they were oftentimes raising their hand saying I need to make more money, or I'm tired of being laid off, or a lot of these things that we saw during the pandemic were very prevalent around didn't have access to remote work, or they were frontline workers but they weren't being paid like they should have been. And so for us was like, well, let's get you into a new industry where you can earn that pay, you can get access to new opportunities in and around job environments where they have ping pong tables or beer on tap, which is just mind blowing to a lot of our community, right? And so for us was how do we set them up for success in terms of exposure, getting them access to the career opportunities, giving them, the right tech and tools that they need to be successful in the job, but then also, and most important, get them hands-on experience. And so, we launched what would become this tech sales boot camp. It was 12 weeks long, part-time. We were meeting our students where they were at. And ultimately, for us, it was really amazing to see that individuals, as they were going through our program, would come out doubling and tripling their incomes, getting access to full benefits for the first time, and getting off of government assistance programs. So everything that we said we were going to do, we did. However, it was very human capital intensive. And that was not something that we had initially thought about, especially as an early stage bootstrap startup. And so, it was right at this time that we really started to think through, like, what does Gritly look like at scale? How do we have this impact, and how do we scale it across the United States and across the world? And how do we leverage technology to do that? And so, being very resource constrained, this is actually one of our favorite moments, because this is, where we looked at, a very pivotal moment for Gritly was us actually getting accepted to the Camelback Fellowship back in, at the beginning of 2022. And so for us, it was, obviously we got access to that capital, which was, really amazing for us. But then in addition to that, really just, got access to a really strong support network of other entrepreneurs, founders, and operators. And for us, that's where we really gained the clarity on what Gritly is today. And so we built a technology platform that would allow us to scale our internal operations, where we have all of our candidates learning, but also what we started to do is data collection on their performance. So that way we can package up all of their metrics and say, hey, hiring manager, don't worry about, interviewing these people and asking them, tell me about a time when, or talk to me when you've sold something. It's more about, you can actually go in and listen to mock sales calls and engage with their actual prospecting. So you know that they can do the job before they get the job, and at what level, right? So really it comes down into giving hiring managers and employers the ability to actually verify or assess and verify skill acquisition at the point at which it's actually happening. And so this is, gives them the ability to, gain that confidence a lot faster. And so, that worked for us. Our employers really loved it. We were setting, these candidate profiles up in a way that was easy for them to digest, because, we were collecting so much data. If we gave them access to all of it, they might not know what to do with it or throw up. It's a lot, right? And so for us was, how do we make it so easy for somebody who's not technical to digest and actually, qualify that this data is what they need to see? And that's a very, we're having very, intimate conversations with these employers around what does this look like for you, and keeping our customers top of mind. So, today, Gritly is, we're building infrastructure for skills-based training and hiring, where, the one thing that happened that we didn't expect was our competition came to us and said, hey, can we utilize that platform, and can you help get our students hired too? And so we realized that we can accelerate our impact on the world by going from being one player in the vocational training space to providing infrastructure for the rest of the industry. And that's exactly when we knew that, this is what we needed to be doing. This is why, everything that we're doing is much bigger than ourselves. But now, we are the platform infrastructure to, really set up the upskilling and reskilling industry to be ripe for success. As we're seeing a lot of these layoffs happening, and people needing to upskill with AI and all these other, revolutions that are going on. Gritly is poised to be the platform that takes a lot of, America's individuals who needs to upskill, and gives them everything from career exposure to job offer, and everything in between, all happening in one place.
Thank you for going into that. I think you really touched on key aspects of how you went back to your community that you grew up in, to kind of really touch on where Gritly started from, but also a key aspect of how you pivoted as well. Um, and for those watching as well, we both actually went to CU Boulder here, and we're in Denver. So next question that I want to hit on was, as you speak of like your pivot, what has been the biggest challenge or challenges for you as an entrepreneur and founder, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I might even go as far to say that there's more challenges than anything when trying to build a impact driven for profit company, right? That there's a lot of, kind of sacrifices that need to be made, one of two ways that, might not be able to satisfy everybody. And so for us though was, I think the first challenge was, just understanding really how important it is to keep your customers close, right? There's some of it as a founder that, you just have that intuition, that this problem needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved a little bit looking like this, but then you need that customer feedback. Now, for us though, when we we didn't expect to go through that pivot at all. For us, it was actually, when they came to us and asked to utilize a platform, I said no, right? And I guess it wasn't even me saying no, it was my ego saying no. And as a founder, it's like ego is a part of it, but at some point you have to figure out when to leave it at the door. And that was a challenge for me early on of, I was really set in on, this is what we've done. We've had success up until this point. So there is no way that, we need to completely go left, when in all reality, listening to our customers, listening to the market, listening to our core stakeholders, and understanding that, it's not like this that they want it. It's actually like this. And actually for us, what matters is, getting somebody to believe in us enough to take out their wallet and give us, money in the form of revenue. That's really what matters. And so for me, I'm very grateful to have had a really awesome, and still have a really awesome co-founder who, was able to bring me in and say, hey, look, we didn't start this for us to be right. We started this so we can have a major impact on the world, and then when he brought that into me, it was almost like a eye-opening moment where I realized and understood that, yeah, it's no longer about what I think, it's about what our stakeholders think, and how we can have the biggest impact. And so, being able to drop that ego and understand that, yeah, we're going to shift the entire business. Going from services to software is not easy. It's not cheap either. But, for us is, we have started to see what that kind of ripple effect is of us making, better, faster decisions that are mainly impacting our stakeholders, not impacting, our ego. And so, for that was, understanding and realizing the importance. And then ultimately, keeping those customers close of, hey, if you're telling me you need this, then I'm going to have, 5, 6, 7 follow-up questions every time you come with me. Are you willing to build with me? And when you find those right, pilot customers, that you're building, you're doing the right thing, right? You're still got a lot to learn and understand, but, keeping your customers close will help alleviate, a lot of those challenges or a lack of clarity that you may have when you're going through something like a pivot, where you don't have the clarity that maybe you thought you had, or you had 6 months ago. And so through that is, that's definitely a core challenge. And then really the other one is just, making sure you launch, right? Talking to your customers is one thing. You actually want to get your product in the hands of, product or services in the hands of your customers, so that they can touch, feel, break it, utilize it in every which way. So that way you can actually know whether or not you're on the right track. So, those are two of the cores: leaving your ego at the door, and getting, keeping your customers close, and actually getting them to utilize, what your offering is.
Beautiful. I love each of those. And I think something that you also touched on was impact in regards to that, and like getting your customers close, which is something that we also touch on here at Camelback in regards to like legacy, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'm wondering what advice you would give your younger about becoming a founder.
It's a good question. So something I think a lot about, in that, I have, younger siblings, I have mentees that are, thinking about the kind of entrepreneurial pathway, and what that looks like. And first and foremost, I will say that, I think it's clear to me that, not everybody is meant to be a founder, and that's okay. Right? Is there's so, so much going on about, the founder lifestyle, or CEO lifestyle, or, whatever it may be. And for me, it was, almost like that's almost why I got pulled into it. And then I realized that there's so many other things that are, part of it, that are actually very challenging, very hard. That, no one ever really talks to you about, while all the good of, becoming a founder, or starting your own organization, is all great until times aren't. And then you have to, have difficult conversations and let people go. Those are probably, the most difficult conversations I've ever had in my entire life. And it's like, wait, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this, and so there's a lot of that. But on the other side of that, though, I think is really just leaning into my authentic self. Really, it wasn't until we were part of the Camelback Fellowship that, we understood that, one, we're not alone in this journey of, being based in Denver. We're not the most diverse city by any means. And so with that, oftentimes, just like when I was in college to even now, of, only being one of the only diverse founders in the room was something I got used to and realized like, okay, well, we can't have it our way all the time. But when I got to Camelback, I realized that, it is okay to be your authentic self, and it's okay to lean into your experiences that are unique to you and you only, that made you who you are. Right. And so for me, it was, identifying and finding that community, and then just leaning into my authentic self, where there would be times where I would feel I would have to stimulate myself just to show up to certain events or anything like that, and that's absolutely not the case. And so for my younger self, and for anyone that's on this call that's ever feeling like you can't be your the full complete version of yourself when you're either stepping into a room with opportunities like the Camelback Fellowship, or you're going to pitch investors, if you can't be your authentic self around these individuals who are looking to invest money into you or work with you, or be a part of your organization, then maybe they're not the right fit. It's more about them not being the right fit than it's about you, not being able to fully be your authentic self. And so I think that is one of the more enlightening moments of my entrepreneurial journey, was finding that community and realizing that it's okay. I can be me.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. And I think it's super powerful to always come back to yourself, and on your own journey, founder and otherwise. Um, you touched on this a little bit, but I want to go deeper. So how has the Camelback Fellowship supported your growth as a founder? You touched on the community and you touched on the capital, but I'm interested to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I don't want to just brush over those. I mean, as a early stage diverse first time founder, right? There's a lot there. But pretty much what it comes in to say is that we need a lot of believers early on. And for me, coming from the background I did, we didn't have the friends and family round that so many people were talking to us about, of, oh, well, before you raise VC, go do the friends and family round. And it's like, well, that's cool, but like, I don't have that dynamic. Like, there is no funds that we can pull from, in the forms of thousands of dollars, even that it's just like, that doesn't exist to me. And so for me, it was like, all right, well, how do we get this capital? What does this look like? And for us, we did our first investor, but even before Camelback, was the CEO of our first paying customer. So we had to deliver early on, and thankfully we did enough so to get them to come involved. But really, I don't want to say that they were strangers, because they're definitely not now. But they were like, well, who's this kid and why should we believe in him? And, oh, okay, well, he looks like he's kind of onto something. Yeah, sure, we'll throw him 5, 10, 15,000 bucks. And that would become our first angel investment that we would make stretch out over months and months and months of time, just because we knew how to be lean. Now, for us at the time, the Camelback investment was the largest check we brought into the company. And at that time, it transformed everything for us. It gave us a new perspective. It gave us this freedom that we never had before, of, oh, wait, we can actually invest in X and Y and Z, which were always just on our wish list, because we were just thinking about surviving and making it to the next few weeks. And so for us, that capital is huge. And I think that's also the reality for a lot of us founders is, we want to be able to take that leap. And, maybe you're thinking about taking time off of your full-time job, or you have a family, or you have dependents, or you have all of these other things that a lot of diverse founders are dealing with just in their own day-to-day lives, that don't allow you to fully focus on the business, to fully bring it to fruition. But when you get that capital, everything changes. And so capital, I always will be a big advocate of if you can get that capital, your mindset will change, and you can really be responsible about bringing your company to the market. And then you really, not to say you have no excuses, but money isn't as much of one as it was before. And so capital is always big. But then the other component, right, is, there's sometimes you get, not all money is good money. But when you work with Camelback, it was the community first and foremost, of, like I said, being able to tap into my authentic self before I knew I could. Was I was able to see the other founders in my cohort, and understand and say, well, one, they look like me and they have similar experiences as me, and I can relate to them. But also, too, we're all at different stages of our journey, coming from different backgrounds, different places in the country, solving problems that we all are sharing impact. So for me, it was most exciting around I'm excited about the work that we do. I'm passionate about the work that we do, and I give a damn. And I think that that was a very common thread amongst everyone in here, was that, we really, we want to see the world change in ways we care enough to give that impact. And just being in that room, the energy is different. It's different than being in a room with, a bunch of other founders who are solving, tools for all of their other tech bros just to, make more money in crypto or whatever. Like, that's cool, but that's just not for me. And that's not what, I have any interest in. And, Camelback is facilitating this ecosystem of, builders and movers and changers who are willing to go that extra mile, but then also the resources, right? I mean, one of my favorite humble brags about Camelback most recently was, I did the fellowship back in 2022 in the beginning. I think there's been 1 to 3 cohorts since. And, I was still able to get a scholarship to go to ASU GSV for the first time just, last month. And that had been a big conference on my list for, for I think 2 years now, once it really came on our radar of like, oh, we need to be there. This time last year, we were, not as clear. We were going through the pivot halfway through, but we knew we wanted to be there. And so I started to look really early this year. And that's when I realized, like, wow, these conferences are expensive. And it's not just the conference ticket, right? It's the hotel and all of the other things that, when you're a bootstrap or, you're a, low funded startup, you got to make those sacrifices. And so for us, it was like, okay, well, maybe I can just tune in virtually, but I know the connections are going to, and then Camelback came in and said, hey, there's scholarship opportunities. And for me, I'm like, y'all didn't have to do that, but you all did. And you were willing to make that investment. I was fortunate to get one of those scholarships, and I went, and we have gotten a large number of pipeline opportunities, in the form of partnerships and revenue for us that are going to be game changing. And I needed to be there. I needed to meet these individuals in person. I needed to, have those, spontaneous conversations, riding up the escalator, asking somebody what they did. And now we're looking at running a pilot for their organization, right? And it's just like, I would have had that. And for me, I've been part of other networks and organizations that it's like, hey, we got you while you're in your 12 weeks here. Outside of that, we hope for the best and we'll be cheering you on from the sidelines, which is great. You can't ask for much more. But for Camelback to go above and beyond and still be engaging with fellows from years past, and we were all getting together for, we had a really great dinner and was able to see other founders from my cohort and from and beyond. And so for me, it was just like, that is one of those things that Camelback will always be near and dear to my heart, because you don't have to and you still did, which is oftentimes a lot of what us founders are doing, is we don't have to, but we still are. And that heartbeat, it means the world to me. And I hope more than anything just to continue to hopefully be proving Camelback right, and in their investment for me from day one, but also for their future investments in and around the scholarships and other opportunities that they offer to fellows.
There were so many times I wanted to just like plus one on what you said, because you hit on so many different nuggets. But I also, that last part, I'm so glad that the ASU GSV conference was a beautiful opportunity for you, and I'm excited to hear more about it as well. What is next for your venture in 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, really, right now we're in a place where we're just heads down building product, right? We're a software company, and had you told me that we would be a data-driven learning platform, with a marketplace component to it 18 months ago, I would probably laughed in your face and said, there's no way, right? But for us, it's hard to think about, as we say, beyond, because we're just so focused on, even this quarter of locked in what we need to do, who we need to do it for, and making sure we're keeping those, those cadences of talking to our customers, our pilots, on a weekly basis, if not, daily, texting them, letting them know that, new updates are coming through. And so for us is, really just continuing to build an ecosystem on a state-by-state basis. So we're starting here in Colorado. We're having a lot of the right conversations that, that matter to our stakeholders and matter to our candidates that are ultimately, going through that life-changing experience on the Gritly platform, and making sure that the ecosystem is very healthy. I think is the component. There's so many organizations that are doing such great work that don't have the ability to communicate or share resources. We're changing all of that at Gritly, and we're going to make sure that everyone has that harmonious relationship, whether it be training provider, candidate looking to upscale, or employer looking to hire. Ensuring that everyone is happy on the platform is really important. Now, I will say that all of that is much easier said than done. What we're doing is oftentimes looked at as very challenging. There is a really heavy data infrastructure component here that we need to be very intentional about, and also very ethical about, right? That these are, as we're dealing with large amounts of data, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things for our stakeholders. And we always make sure that, we're keeping them top of mind in a lot of the decisions that we make, which, for me is really my job. And so, holding myself accountable with that is really important. And, really through the rest of 23 is just, continuing to launch our product at a very high level where we're, continuing to provide more and more value to our stakeholders. Outside of that, I mean, it's hard to predict, but I do know and can guarantee that, we will be listening to our stakeholders. So, for us is keeping that top of mind, and we might change again, or we might just, continue to dive in. But either way, that will come at the, at the hands of our stakeholders who are, willing to continue to make sure we're capitalized.
Love it. Well, Camelback is here to support you and see you on your journey. So we will be watching as you grow. Okay, well, let's come back to legacy and impact. So how do you hope your venture changes the world for the better?
It's a great question. I think, really when it's all said and done, I want the average individual who, is either kind of going through that phase of they need to upskill, they need to reskill, or they need to next skill, right? Whatever it comes into. But I hope that when they come to that realization that is their next step in their professional career or their professional journey, that they can confidently look at Gritly as the one place to go from career exposure to job offer and everything in between, right? It traditionally right now it's, hey, if I want to upskill or reskill, I have to go, enroll myself into community college or university or something, of that sort. I have to then complete that. And that means taking courses that are, irrelevant to me in my job, that are relevant to me and actually making money, that are just a placeholder that I don't have time for in the first place. And then I hope to, then have to go out and work with career services, get on other platforms, and ultimately try and find that next job, which is a whole nother set of logins, a whole nother set of systems and processes, and then ultimately trying to find that right employer just to get, your first job in the industry. For us, we want to pull all of that back and dive really deep into, you're raising your hand saying you need to reskill. You can come to Gritly. We'll help you identify what career path is ideal for you, understanding, what the journey looks like, right? So we're not just thinking about role one or just, whatever role we can get you in as fast as possible. We're thinking about roles 2, 3, and 4. So that way you can really lean into this next career journey, which is a lot, easier said than done. But for us, that intentionality starts today. And so, with that though, making sure that these individuals can identify the right career path, identify the right training program that's relevant for them, and then actually give them the power to begin that training on the same platform. And while they're training, start to engage with employers. So that way, it comes, you graduate you complete your certification program on your upskilling program on a Friday, and you start your new job on a Monday. And that you're in that job, not just for that first role, but you see yourself advancing, over the next 5 years at this same organization because you believe in their mission, because you believe in their product, their business model, right? It's much deeper than just trying to put warm bodies in seats for us. And, that intentionality starts today. And that's how, we look at the future of helping more Americans get access to economic mobility through employment as fast as possible.
I think that's super impactful and powerful. Lastly, before we close, so what is the best piece of advice that you've received on your entrepreneurial journey?
Just launch. And, I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but, there's so much to be learned and gained from your customers actually playing and breaking your product right now. It's not to say that you're going to go and charge full price right off the jump and, your product's going to be flawless. By no means that's not the case, but finding the right partners who are willing to give you feedback and who are willing to test it with you and who are willing to, take that risk or take that sacrifice to, believe in some early stage startup. we have learned more from that than we can ever thought, we can ever think about, trying to create these hypotheses, our assumptions about what this company will look like. I've been wrong way more than I've been right in our assumptions, but I was being proven wrong was everything that I needed. And so the more that your customers can actually, engage with your product or service before you're actually taking it to market at at a commercial scale, the better off you'll be when that time comes, right? You want to be able to understand the little things that you might not think about this button here being placed there because it just makes sense to you, when in all reality your stakeholders hate it because the other platform that they use has it right there and they can't stand it. You don't know that. You're not in those seats. And so the more that you can pull yourself out of that equation and really just give that power to your customers to prove you wrong, and not be offended by it, the better off you're going to be as a founder, and really has been transformational for me in my journey.
All the nuggets of wisdom are being dropped today. Okay, so lastly, how can people connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, so always happy to be, part of this ecosystem, and give first when I can. And so I think first and foremost the best way to reach me is just via email. My email is david@gritly.us. Just let me know you came from Camelback, and you'll have my time for sure. And then outside of that, I'm trying to get more and more engaging on social media, as I really start to lean into, this workforce and impact space. But with that, on all across the board on all socials, my @ is David Has Grit. So trying to keep it simple there, but hopefully I was able to add value today to you all. And please, if I can, be a resource, or if there's anyone in my network that you feel I can help connect you with, reach out. Let's continue to grow this ecosystem for diverse founders. And I'm grateful that Camelback is doing the work, and very fortunate to be a part of the community. So thank you, Liv, for the opportunity today. I'm really excited and grateful.
Thank you so much, David, for the time. And I hope everyone enjoyed hearing David's words and experience and journey. Thank you so much.
Thanks.